Jim Hauck. Really, really enjoyed my time speaking with Jim. Jim's got a big tech background. He's at some of the biggest firms in the world, Palo Alto, Salesforce, and just got to a point where he had enough. There was layoffs, and he said, just take me away. Always loved to travel, so just completely made a new business as a travel advisor. And, with all the tech that we have now, the AI, the World Wide Web, of course, is it necessary? What do we need? And he talks about the big differences with traveling. I love to travel. Most people do, but when do you call upon an advisor for help? He's got a great podcast too, where he talks about it. But really, really, really interesting insight on what's needed. What you should look for. I opened the conversation with the question of what's the difference between a tourist and a traveler. I wonder what your answer be. Great conversation with Jim. Really, really good guy. He helps there in the DFW area of Texas with homeless too. We talk about that as well, and really enjoyed my time with Jim. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because I was working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How did I lose the weight? Just one word, discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission, how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision, growth through learning from others. But Jim Hauck, thank you so much for your time. I'm very excited to talk to you, man. What's the difference between a traveler and a tourist?
A traveler and a tourist. A tourist is not going to dive deep into the culture they're in. They're going to just see what's presented to them. And a traveler is going to look closer and potentially go under the covers and dive in and wants to understand the place they're visiting and explore it at a deep level.
In this fast-paced MSP landscape, how do you stay ahead? Introducing MSPinfluencer.com, your ultimate hub for MSP news, insights, and community connection powered by ForzaDash. More than 75,000 MSPs subscribe to our MSP Influencer Pulse weekly newsletter, staying informed and ahead of industry trends. Tune in to emerging podcasts from Joey Pinz and leading MSP voices, offering essential tips, powerful insights, and success stories. Explore our multi-authored blogs, crafted specifically for MSP leaders, delivering fresh perspectives and actionable strategies. Celebrate excellence with the industry-leading ForzaDash MSP Influencer Awards, recognizing innovation, leadership, and impact in the MSP community. Join thousands of MSP professionals who trust MSPinfluencer.com to grow their business and expand their networks. MSPinfluencer.com, where today's MSP leaders connect, collaborate, and conquer, all powered by the ForzaDash platform, helping MSP vendors work effectively with MSPs and helping MSPs grow. Is there anything wrong with being a tourist?
I would say that there's nothing wrong. However, there's always a but, right? You're not adding to or improving the place you go by putting your money in or putting your time in, right? So if you go to a destination, you're a tourist, you may see all the touristy things, but have you actually improved by spending your money in their economy? Have you done something to make it good for being there? I think travelers spend money on the economy. They go see local restaurants. They may go to the fringe. A tourist is going to stay in the sensors and the sort of the traps, as we call them, right? The places where you stay to see all the things the postcards tell you.
Is it the responsibility of somebody visiting a destination to help with the community, economy, etc.?
No, but I think there's a rising movement that is starting to talk about, sort of tourism with a purpose, like going and doing tourism and putting time in to help out in a place you go. I have not personally done a lot of that. I'm a very much local advocate for helping out, but I do believe that you have the opportunity to at least minimally put money into the economy outside the standard tourism places, right? So I'm going to use cruise lines, for example. You get off a ship and you're sort of stuck in the port area that they've built which has all the standard vendors you see in every port you go to. Until you leave the gate of that area beyond their confines, you don't really get into the country, right? You don't really see the city you're in. And I think it's really important for tourists and travelers to get outside the gates. Otherwise, you're just going to see what's presented to you. It's another pool, another bar, another place to sit in the sun, more diamonds than you'll ever need, that kind of stuff. So I personally, when I travel somewhere, I want to go out and see the dirty side, the more real side, right? I want to get away from what's pretty and what's glitzy.
I think it's Chris Rock who has the joke where, I forget which Caribbean nation it was, but from the airport to the resort is very sad, but at the resort, it's wonderful.
Yeah. And that's, it's sort of, once you go inside a gated area, it all changes, right? And I book people sometimes into places that are, land resorts, right? An all-inclusive thing. And I'm like, that's great. I'm glad that's where they want to go, right? That's their thing to experience. But what happens is they never get outside of there. So they're living in a little bit of a world that isn't real.
Now, what if we're traveling? We're both in the States. You're in Dallas. I'm here in Tampa. If we're traveling to another city, certainly we could say the same thing about a city too, because there's a lot of areas that they need help in as well, right?
Yeah, I think that's the idea of helping when you tour a city anywhere, right? If you take homelessness, I'm actively involved in the homelessness situation. Yeah. There's so much you can do in any city you go to, and it doesn't require you to give weeks of time. You could show up for a day and go work in a food pantry in a city and provide some help. You're just really providing your labor resource, right? It doesn't have to cost you anything. It doesn't have to be out of control offerings, right?
That is very true. So what attracted you? You were in tech. You were at Palo Alto. You were at Salesforce. This is the height of tech. Why did you leave?
25 plus years working in tech. You've been there. You understand it. I loved tech. I love tech for what tech is, but I started to see that edge of tech where it was starting to change. It was no longer fun and exciting. It was sort of more of a drill, more mundane, and it was all chasing stockholder goals and not necessarily tech for the sake of tech. I got into tech, believe it or not, for Y2K. Now, I've worked in tech before that, but I got into deep corporate tech in 1999 when I took a job at the Gap, when I was asked if I could make sure their Macs would be Y2K compatible. And being smart enough at the time, I laughed that somebody was willing to hire me to do that, given Macs were Y2K compatible. Yes. But it led to 15 years there, and then Salesforce and Palo. And it was good work. I'm not going to say it was bad, but I never felt really challenged. And the thing I hated most was I had to do what everybody else thought was right, not necessarily what I thought was right. And often I probably hold myself in too high a regard at times, but I'm a smart guy. I sort of get what should be done. And sometimes you get told by someone you're not going to do it because we don't want to do it that way. And you say, but this is the smarter way to do it, right? It's not protecting a job. It's not protecting a person. So after all that tech time, when layoffs came around, I was like, I'm gone. I'll go. I don't want to go through this again. I don't want to go get another company and find myself there in downtime. So they let certain people go. I had a boss who I think was scared of me, because I knew too much. I had just run a sales kickoff event where my previous boss before her and I had saved about $5 million on the budget for an event in Vegas post-COVID, right? So it was a big deal. And I think I knew too much. I built good tools and spreadsheets and stuff to manage all those things. And so, it was just like, after that, I thought, I don't want to be somebody else's cog anymore. I want to be my own. I want to go do my own. And so I looked at my life and I said, listen, you love to travel. You love to go see things. You love to get out of your space. It's where my passion has always lied. So I just said, hey, let's do this. And probably not the best year to start being a travel advisor and own my own travel business.
When was it?
Just this last year and a half. So political words aside, things changed and the world stopped for a bit. People haven't been traveling a lot because they're afraid of spending money they don't necessarily know if they're going to have in a year, right? So what would have been a normal trickle of kind of steady travelers has reduced itself to real serious travelers, people who really want to go. And what's happening in the industry that I see is people go who want to spend big dollars, right? They want to go big time travel. They're not looking at the I'm going on a cruise here or a cruise there. It's like, I'm going to go somewhere and I'm going to go for 2 or 3 weeks and I'm going to spend $25,000 on this vacation. You know, I'm going to go really have a good time, because I think people are sort of starting to understand the concept of do it while you can. And I've always been an advocate of, like, there's a lot of times in your life where you get to travel, but you don't always get to travel for you. And when you get to travel for you, you should do what you want to see and what you want to do. And I always have folks say, well, I could go next year. I go the year after. I'm like, yeah, but you know what? Next year, that may not be available. Next year, you may not be available, right? It's that whole concept of, given all things, you need to consider what you're willing to give up to go travel. And sometimes you got to give it up now, because you might. I always said to my dad, because he used to make so much fun of me traveling. It's like, you travel a lot. I said, yeah, but I don't want to be 70 thinking I want to go somewhere and I can't because I'm not physically able to do it, you know?
Jim, there are so many people that are stuck in kind of these dead end jobs, and, you know, they're not happy, they're not fulfilled. And it takes a certain level of gumption and braveness to be able to branch off like you did and do. So
it's jumping off the deep end and just hoping there's water down there somewhere.
Your message to these people is what?
You know, the best investment's always going to be in you.
Yeah.
In yourself. And you know what I thought was, and I still believe in this, I'm going to make this go one way or the other. It's going to work, right? I may need to go get another job at some point to make some ends meet. And, you know, I watch my bank accounts and say, well, it isn't going up like I'd like it to, right? It's sort of going the other direction as things are tough. But I'm a very faithful person. I believe in higher power. And I do believe that will be, if I put the good out there, it comes back to me. I believe in the karma equation and all those kind of things. So if you do the right things happen to you. And I do think that happens. So it was scary. It still is scary, Joey. Believe me, it's very scary some days, you know, when the phone hasn't rung for a week and you haven't talked to any clients in a week and you're sort of saying, all right, you know, I don't have any sales coming in this month or that month. And you're looking at your pipeline going, I got a lot of pent up demand. It's not coming through yet. Right. So, but what I wanted to do was, I also had worked a lot in enablement and training in my fields, right? So, and part of that was training salespeople how to sell product. I was like, okay, I've done this enough. I should be able to sell something. You know, I know the ins, the outs, the rights, the wrongs, right? So that was also part of the drive. It was somewhere I could go where I thought I could be successful. There's a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit in my family. I always say both of my grandmothers were single. Raised families, one divorced, one lost her husband. They both were very early people in work. My grandmother worked in the sheriff's department on my dad's side as a single woman. She then worked in a defense contractor. She was the pantsuit wearing woman of the age, right, which wasn't common. My other grandmother owned a what do you call it? Like a thrift shop with a fountain bar and things like that. Then she ended up, through the end of her life, she ran a pizza store, right? My sister has a wine bar, you know, so there's always been this entrepreneurial feel around me. So, and I sort of look and said, if my sister can do this, I can do it too. You know, so, yeah, I wanted to get out on my own. I didn't want to be beholden to somebody. And I'm looking at that, like, what's my retirement picture look like, right? I can ride this business out until I'm a lot older. I could be a travel advisor until I'm 90, you know, if I live that long, right? So,
you know, I think we're about the same age, but as kids, there was travel agencies on every block. They were all over the place.
Travel was the thing, right? I bought my first travel at a travel agency where I sit in front of a travel agent who had some crazy system set up.
Right.
And then they gave you a paper ticket to
That's right.
Right.
That's right, for the flight. Yeah, yeah. And so we saw that the World Wide Web really kind of did away with it or changed it. Now we have AI. Is it helping more or hurting more?
So I believe what we're seeing is the rebirth of the travel advisors. And for one reason, it's gotten more complicated. When you want to travel now, you know, when you went to a travel agent, right, they got your flight, potentially your hotel, your transportation, they got everything arranged, right? And gave you a little booklet. When you went to the one I love is go AAA, right? You would go to AAA and you'd get a triptych and it would get you from here to there with all your recommendations. And it was a little booklet custom made for you. And that's sort of where we're at now, where people want the customization, but they don't know how to do it. So travel advisors come in with access to tools and resources that you too can get to, right? You could go Google this stuff and you could use AI, But what I'm going to add to that from a value perspective is I always say I'm your travel agent, guardian angel, right? I'm your person who's watching over while you're traveling to make sure if something's going to happen, I preempt it before you get to it. And for my customers, that's a big deal, right? I kind of look and say, hey, look, government's shut down. You might experience this. You might experience that. Let's make sure we have a backup plan ready just in case, And as a person, a citizen, Joe Q citizen, you're not going to remember that, right? You're going to be like, I'll figure it out when I get there. And you get to the airport and they say, well, the airlines aren't paying for that fix that you need to get to your place, right? They're going to leave you there. So I think that's where travel agents are coming back in. Plus, there's a lot of group travel. The interesting family travel and group travel is coming back. People are starting to want to travel with others more. So, and then solo travel is getting big. And if you want to travel solo, you need a travel agent because you got to navigate the whole world of supplements and extras and pay that you do for 2 versus 1, right? So AI certainly can get you zoned in. I use AI myself when I'm working on travel plans for a customer, mostly to help me make sure things look good and sound good and write up good, right? So they understand them, but also just to sort of dig in what's in a city, what's going on. So I've had people ask me like, hey, I want to book a trip to Spain. And it's these 2 cities. And I've never been there, right? But I don't need to go there now. I can go into AI and do a bit of deep digging, right? And kind of get what's going on. And I can know everything from crime stats to where to eat, right?
My father was an Italian immigrant, so I spent a decent amount of time over there. And when people ask me, I always give 3 tips and tell me what you think of these. 1, I always say, ask the cops where they eat. Everybody else gets paid. Concierge, taxi, Uber, everybody else gets paid. The cops will be honest with you, especially in Italy. 2, if the menu is in English, bad sign, you want it in Italian, and even better if it's up on a chalkboard. Then it's like
it's the daily menu, right?
And then lastly is that the wine in the carafe is better than anything bottled. They make more money with the bottle, but just the wine in the carafe is less expensive. And just so those are my 3 tips all around food, which I guess tells you a lot about me.
I think though you are spot on, and that's how I travel as well, right? I mean, I look for. So I lived in the Northeast. I know my Italian friends really well. I lived up in Boston, right? I used to love to go to the North End just for dinners and stuff.
Wonderful area.
And I have a lovely story of being in a restaurant one night when a white limo pulled up and they came in and they asked us all to leave the restaurant. And we were pretty sure he was probably one of the godfathers in the area. And all these people walked in and sat down. They kicked us out.
Wow. Did you have to pay for your meal?
It's free. You can go.
Wow.
So, when I travel, this is what I mean about getting outside the gates. Last time I was, for instance, in the Dominican Republic, I got outside the gates and I went and found a little restaurant on the beach, near the beaches, and just sat and had local food and beer. And it wasn't everything you see. It wasn't Corona. It wasn't, it was something local, a Dominican brew, and it was all local fresh caught food, fresh fish for the day. That's when you're really exploring and enjoying someplace, right? The menu was hard for me to understand. The pictures sort of made sense. And even there, I was a little iffy as to what was that thing they were going to bring me. But I think you got to go outside your boundaries.
It really helps. I was in London earlier this year and I went off by myself and I saw this little Iraqi. I've never had Iraqi food. And I went in there and it was warm. It was wonderful. And they brought over a menu and I said, please make me whatever you like. Do you have any allergies? No. Spice level. I say, well, let's make it 5 out of 10, and they just started serving me food, Jim, like I was in their kitchen and they sat with me. It was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful.
I had that similar experience actually in Rome. We found a little restaurant one night. And they said, come back at 6. We open at 6 and we serve around 6:30. There's only 12 people in, right? That's all they brought in.
Wow.
And the chef basically was cooking out of his home kitchen.
Right.
I had no idea what we were going to eat. It was the best food I ever had. He kept bringing things out. You didn't pick anything. You just went with what he's going to give you that day. But it's similar. Well, anytime I go anywhere, I look for where are the locals eating. Right. Where's the line outside in the non-normal areas, right? Where are they lined up to eat? Where's the food cheap, right? Because sometimes that's the best stuff, So people get hooked on things they know. And I think we all live a little bit fearful of food poisoning or issues while you're traveling. Well, I've drunk the water in Mexico a couple of times and didn't have any problems, right?
Yeah, very interesting. Now, there are some places where you have to be very careful with some of the local
Sure.
customs, like
Sure.
the United Arab Emirates, and
Yeah.
places like this where you have to. There's separate entrances for women and things like this, and so I know I had the fear. My friends do. They don't want to go to these places. They're afraid of violating some of these things and being put in jail. And so how do you help with that area?
I always start with a conversation around what do you know about where you're going?
Mm,
Have you been there? Have you studied it? What have you seen? Right. And it's funny what people will tell you. I saw it in a movie and I just want to go see this. Right.
mhm,
It's like, okay, great. Probably not going to be what you saw in the movie. Right. It's that kind of thing. But also just reminding them there are customs, sometimes just telling folks that, American meal times are not standard in the rest of the world.
right. Yeah, that's a good point.
People get up and if you go to Europe, probably from being in Italy, breakfast isn't a big meal. It's going to be light pastry, coffee. Lunch is probably a more substantial meal, but it's still not going to be all the trimmings, right? It's going to be something filling. The dinner is going to be a long meal. It should take hours. It shouldn't be a 30-minute tabletop turn, right? And you're going to end it with espresso, which you're going to think is going to keep you up, but it's ultimately going to send you to bed.
It is amazing how different it is, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's just,
yeah.
it's not better or worse. It's just so different.
It is. And I think one of the things, and I'm going to just go by things I've been quoted, but people who travel are less afraid of life.
Right.
And I think in America, when you think of how few people have ever left the country, and you see sort of what goes on, right? You see how people are fearful of others. When you go to another country, your fear changes because you've been educated, you learn, right? And so I've remember my first time to the Bahamas, I rented a scooter. When I went down this road, it was so beautiful, and I'm going around. When I got back, someone's like, well, where'd you guys go? I went down there, and there was this beautiful coastline. And they're like, oh my God, you're not supposed to go there. That's the prison. That's the bad area. I'm like,
wow.
Nobody threatened me, And I saw less people and more beauty than I did anything, right? And I ran off my scooter and jumped in the ocean because it was so beautiful. It just called me, right? And you wouldn't do that on a tour. They just wouldn't take you there. And I think that's the sad part. You want to, if you get out of here, if you get out of your comfort zone, life changes.
Yeah, I like I said, my father was an Italian immigrant, so I'll never forget this. And I was 10 years old, Jim. So it was the first day of summer. It was the third grade just ended. My father said, give me a suitcase and said, put your clothes in here. I said, sure, Dad. And so I'm from New Haven, like you said, I'm from the Northeast. So he proceeds to bring me to the bus station, tells the driver to drop me Terminal 1 JFK, gives me a bus ticket and a plane ticket, says you're going to meet your grandmother in Milan. So
Wow.
I'm 10 years old with a suitcase, excited as hell, get on the bus. He'd be arrested now, right?
I just say he'd be in jail for a reason.
Yeah. So I remember going to JFK and asking there in Queens and asking people, and I got on the plane and I went to Milan and I got the picture up, met my uncle and my grandmother for the first time in my life. Yeah, with a picture, and proceeded to spend many, many summers there all the way through college. But it just gave me an education and a viewpoint that you never would have if you just stayed here.
Well, and think about it. You didn't have AI or Google search where you were going.
Phone. No,
I mean, you got off of a plane and you sort of had to navigate everything, and you had to hope you knew what you were talking about.
That's right. That's right.
And I think that people have become so customarily attached to devices when they travel. It's like, I want to put my phone away when I travel, other than for photos, because it's one less thing to carry, right? I want to see people. I want to look up. Right. Phone people walk down, right? They're like this the whole way. And remembering to look up is a big deal, I think. And, I was talking to someone last night. I run in this little, this church group, faith group at home here on Sunday nights. We just started up. And we were talking about experiences of gratitude last night. And one of the things I love is this woman talked about how she had a high school music teacher that followed her home one night just to be sure she was safe and would check in with her along the way. And we were laughing because I said, if he did that today, he'd have been arrested at the first stop because he would have probably been considered a child, perpetrator or whatever. But he says it's in our course of our lifetimes. Look at how that stuff's changed. You can't have a relationship with people that are older than you. You can't trust someone you talk to. And is that really what's happened? Did it really change? And that's the thing I always ask. Did it really change, or did our perceptions of it change? Right?
So when planning a trip with
Yeah.
yourself or with your spouse or your friends or whatever, what are some of the common mistakes people make? Why should they use your expertise?
So they'll try to get too much into one day. People think
Ah,
they are able to cram a lot of stuff into an hour.
yeah.
And if funny, I just wrote a post about this today on Facebook about Thanksgiving dinner, and I think it's the same kind of idea. No
Mm,
matter what you do, it's going to take more time and you'll forget something.
right.
No matter how good it is, you'll criticize yourself the whole time, right? It's those kind of things. So people will come to you and say, I want to go to here, right? And I mean, literally, they'll give you a laundry list of things. And I will say, so what are you planning? 3-4 weeks of vacation here? And they'll look at me and they go, why? It's just because you're going somewhere new every day. What are you going to learn? You're going to travel. You're going to get there, check in your hotel. You'll be exhausted. You'll want to get out. You'll get more exhausted. God forbid you have children with you because they'll get really cranky, right? And the first stop's going to ruin the rest of your vacation because you will never get to anything.
Wow.
And so, I always like to qualify who's traveling, how many people were together, what's your level of willingness to push yourself, because you travel, you get tired. I think a good vacation, you do come home exhausted because you've done a lot and seen a lot. But a good vacation means you actually had time to rest everywhere and rejuvenate too, right? So then you don't come home exhausted. So yeah, it's just people want to do too much. They cut their time too short. I'll make that connection at that airport. Really, in Chicago, you're going to run from that end of the gates to that end of the gates in 10 minutes. All right, you go, OJ, right?
Wow.
It's just funny how people think they can do so much. And so one of the things I don't, it's grounding them, right, a little bit. It's putting realism back into the picture, but helping them understand how they can get as much out of what they can do, right? Explaining them that if they've seen a church, they've seen a church. You don't need to see every church in Rome to see the church, right?
I remember in Venice, I'm in Florence, how, you just kind of get, fatigue from seeing so many.
Yeah, and Florence is a beautiful city. I mean, it's very, people are often underrated because they're going other places than Florence, right? But Florence is a beautiful city.
Yes. Yeah, it certainly is. So let's say we're going to Machu Picchu, someplace like that, where you have to take tours to get up to the place, and there's lots of intermediate steps there. So how do you help with that?
Again, you want to start with, it's always about, travel is a research game, right? You're researching your customers, you're researching their destinations. So I need to know your level of fitness, your level of willingness, how far can you push yourself? What do you do on a regular basis? If I told you, hey, we're going to go right up to the peak of Everest, you'd probably say, okay, let's do it. I'd be like, yeah, that's not happening. You're not going to get there on day one, right? So if you're going to go to Machu Picchu, you think about, okay, are you able to do strenuous exercise? How far can you walk right now, right? And it's not meant to be condescending. It's a check on reality, right? So I know to put you in one tour or another, right? If I'm going to put you in the low effort one, right, it's going to get you there, it may take 3 times as long. Versus if you're young and you hike every weekend and you're just like, I'm going to go, I may get you into more advanced, faster moving kind of game, or find you a hiking tour, right, that gets you through a different experience. It's really about knowing your customer, like anything, knowing your customer, understanding what they want and what they need versus what they want and think they need, right? And then ultimately matching them up with the right tours and excursions and destination items that get them to where they want to be, and selling them their dream, right?
And if you haven't been to these places, does that make a difference?
Like I said, it used to, but now through the power of AI, right, and the web, I can get pretty deep in. If I'm trying to put someone in somewhere I've never been, I do a fair amount of YouTube research and things where I can see visuals, because I'm a visual learner, right? So I like to see things. And then my travel franchise gets me access to a lot of tools to help me know what's in a place, right? And you're successful when someone says, hey, I want to go to Sitges and I want to go to Portugal, right? You're just like, okay, so you want to go to Spain and you want to go to Portugal. One is a city you called out, right? But they kind of don't know the difference. And when I can repeat back some places they've heard of and they want to see, that's when I know I've sort of hit the mark, right? So I go do the research on what's popular in this city, what's popular in that city, why they'd want to see them both, how easy it is to get between, and what they'll experience, and then sort of, give them that back. Sometimes that's where the vacation suddenly takes a turn, right? Oh, I didn't know this. So now I'm rethinking what I want to do, right? And then I have to be ready to throw the B plate in there, right? And say, well, have you thought about, right? So sometimes it's really, have you thought about? I had fun this last year. A friend who asked me, he found four computer museums he wanted to see in, Germany, all really bespoke, right? And he's a big computer nerd. And if he hears this, he'll laugh because he knows. And one of the museums was out in the middle of nowhere. There was no trains, no planes, no buses. And so I said, look, I can get you a black car trip that's going to be a one-off bespoke thing. It's going to cost you about 15, 20 grand for 2 weeks. And I will get you everything you want to see. Hotels included, meals included, transport. You'll travel like a rock star. You'll be in a nice black car touring the German countryside, right? But he says, this one worries me because the best I can get you out there's a 1-star hotel. And I just don't know what the city's like, no matter what I do. It doesn't have anything, but you can find it. And I research, showed me that there were these things to check out. He didn't end up going because he realized too that these were so unique that it was almost impossible to get to, right? But it's sort of fun to be thrown a challenge like that. And for me, I love a good challenge. I love being asked to do something when people say that's going to be hard. I'm like, throw it at me. I'll find a way. And that's been the thing in my life and all my careers too, right? It's like, give me a challenge. Somebody else says they can't do it, I'll do it.
And what if discipline wasn't about punishment, but about unlocking your best self? I spent 2.5 years writing Discipline for Greatness because discipline changed my life. And I know it can change yours too. This isn't theory. Inside, you'll find real, practical steps you can use immediately to focus better, build stronger habits, reduce stress, accomplish your goals, and bring more balance to your life. Whether you're trying to get healthier, improve your career, or simply feel more control, this book gives you the framework. Start today. Grab your copy of Discipline for Greatness at joeypinz.com/book. Thank you. It's like Galapagos Islands or even climbing Mount Everest, even like a big mountain climb or something like that. There's an element of kind of danger and everything. How do you approach that?
Well, that's again, you're interviewing your customer, right? You want to know, if you're 80 years old and you kind of say you want to go to Mount Everest, I'm going to look at you and I'm going to say, okay, Joey, how often do you walk? How far do you walk every day? Where do you go? What's your level of fitness today? Because that is a fitness journey, right? You need to be fit. If you're going to the Galapagos, I'm going to be sort of like, you do realize it's not warm weather. It's not going to be, beaches and sitting in the sun. You're going to be exploring. You have to be in an explorer mode, right? You have to think of yourself as the Jacques Cousteau of the day, right? You're going out probably on a tiny ship to a place that few people go. It's not going to have amenities. There's not going to be someone walking a drink over you while you're watching penguins or watching other things go on, and you have to remind them of these things, so there are ships you can stay on to do all that and still get close, but you're not going to see all those things. And I think that, again, is just putting the reality check out there because people see something on TV and they go, oh, yeah, I want to go see this. I mean, I personally want to go to Antarctica. It's on my bucket list right now, right? Do I think it's going to happen? It's going to be a while before I can afford it because it's expensive. And I have to be ready for what is ultimately the coldest travel you'll ever do. Right. Also, the roughest and toughest seas to be on and all these things, right? So it's not, you're putting yourself through a little bit of hell to go see something you want to see.
Yeah, is the juice worth the squeeze? Yeah, and cruises. I've been on a lot of cruises, Jim, but it's when my kids were younger, and I know they have like lots of adult or non-kids cruises now. They have those river cruises. What's that?
It's the only way to go now.
Oh, is that right? At this age, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't put. If I see a water slide, I'm not going on that cruise. Cruises are evolving. Virgin Voyages, who's one of my favorites to sell, has really put a place in a kind of a stakeholder in the market, right? And said, look, there's a bunch of adults and a bunch of solo adults who want to get out there and see the world, but they want to do it with adult entertainment, adult beverages, adult food, right? And so when you're doing an all-adult cruise, you're not thinking about chicken McNuggets and mac and cheese, right? And making sure the kids have stuff. You're putting good food out there. You could do that on the other lines, and they're good at separating adults and kids. But there's always somebody who says, oh, my kids are okay to come to the adult pool, right? And it's not the kids that I don't like. It's the out of control kids that get me, right? And last Thanksgiving, I put myself in the middle of one of those by going on a princess cruise out of Galveston for the week of Thanksgiving. While there were probably, I think it was 2,700 people on the cruise. I think it was 1,000 kids. It felt like. And no matter where you went, it was screaming kids walking up to the buffet and put their hands straight into the food. And you're like, okay, I'm never doing this again. And it was a beautiful cruise and the ship was beautiful and all that. But my travel mate and I sat in the room a lot just watching TV. He was like, I can't go out there and hear the screaming right now. Wow. So, and I think that's what a lot of adults are looking for. So a lot of other lines are exploring those sort of all adult cruise times. So they're making itineraries where like, yeah, this is all adult only. And there's a lot of tour operators are trying to get ships for a whole group, right? Like that and do that. It changes everything. When we go on a Virgin cruise, we let our hair down, right? Because there's no worry that little Johnny over there just saw something you didn't want him to see, right? Or his parents didn't want him to see. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And these river cruises in Europe, which are really adult only too, but very different vibe. Where you see many cities in a short amount of time.
It's cultural tours, right? That's what I always say. So if you're going on a river cruise, now that's evolving as well. The celebrity has jumped into that market, so of course they're going to bring a little different vibe. But it's not a big hot tub pool bar thing. There will be bars, obviously. There's always bars, right? There's always drinks. But you're going to sometimes pull up to a port with your river cruise, and you might be there 3 or 4 days and go off exploring from there. And other cruise ships will park next to you, and those passengers walk through your ship, right? Really? So it's sort of a whole different environment. It's not like when you're on a big ship. But it is a beautiful experience. It's a great way to see some of Europe and some of the, even now in America, doing the Great Lakes have got tours on small boats, which
really
has sort of been an interesting learning experience for me because I've had a couple customers ask and really surprised at what you can go see because you get Canada and America on a lot of those, right? And some beautiful sites that were never thought of. Even the cruise lines are starting to do more interior waterways cruises. So Quebec to New York and things like that in the fall where you get a stop in Boston, Nova Scotia, Maine, and Quebec, right? Somewhere where you can see the fall colors type thing. So they're all picking up on the fact that people want sort of to get in that high class travel, but they want to take it with them everywhere. I always say, folks, the best way to see the Med, if you've never been, is to go take a cruise because you'll see a bunch of stops and then you'll know, is that a place I want to go back to?
Wow. Yeah.
It's a way to dabble, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point because when I was taking all those cruises with my kids when they were younger, we would make all these stops, and I would think, oh yeah, I wouldn't mind coming back here. And then other places, no, I've seen enough. Yeah, that's a really good point. You're kind of testing it out.
Yeah.
What lessons did you learn, Jim, from your time being with those big tech firms that you were able to apply now in this industry?
So there's a discipline that comes with working in any kind of big corporate work, right? And this is perfect for where you go with your work, right? It's this whole thing of, in a corporate world, you're answering a lot of masters. You're building a lot. You have to show a lot of views and statements and ways to do things. And so I learned how to sort of approach my customer, right? And kind of come in with, here's the good, better, best solutions, right? And usually starting with the middle of the road to feel out where they're at and knowing whether I've got to go good or, best or good, right? I learned patience through a lot of corporate work as a discipline, is being able to sit back and say, it'll happen. It's going to take time. Negotiation was a big deal, right? Learning how to figure out what people wanted, and listening. If there's anything I took out of it, there was a being present and listening to someone all the time, because that's not done enough. But if you are the kind of person in a corporate environment who will sit and listen, people will come to you naturally. I've always had this knack for being the one they want to come tell their stories to, right? And I'm sure if I'd ever gotten into HR, I'd have been in big trouble because I always knew way too much about everybody. But I could hold a confidence and I could keep it quiet, right? And that's something you also learn in corporate America is you don't pull those things back out unless you have to. So yeah, it is a different game, right? You have to really be on top of things. It's consistency. It's innovation at times when it's time to innovate, and it's doing the same thing over and over again when it's time to do the same thing over and over again. It's really understanding everything. And I will never say that I had I learned a lot in the 3 large companies I worked for. I mean, I can't say that I had a bad exposure at all. I mean, I worked for beyond Salesforce and Gap and Palo. I worked at Nestle Beverage. I worked at Wells Fargo Bank. I got to work at a lot of really amazing companies. And the kind of things you want on your resume, right? And there were places that I could say, well, I got to be part of that culture for a short time. And if there's anything I took away was all the unique cultures you learn about working in its company corporate culture, right? And, I loved working at the Gap when I worked for Mickey Drexler. He was the CEO at the time, just a dynamic leader, somebody who, to this day, I still follow him on LinkedIn and see him post things and think, God, I remember being in an office talking to him about that, right? And just thinking, because he was big on this, he believed in the words to live by concept, right? So he had 10 sayings that were always posted that, like, it's the own it, do it, done, kind of thing, where you just kind of learn these phrases, and he still uses them as part of his compass and his North Star, so. And you learn stupid terms like compass and North Star.
Those are just fine terms. I knew exactly what you meant.
I mean, there's things you come out of corporate America with and you go, I'm never going to use that term again.
Right. Jim, when somebody's looking for a travel advisor, what questions should they be asking to make sure it's a good fit?
It is like finding your best friend. Yeah. You need to be able to have a conversation. So you should get on the phone and talk to that person. Or a video call if you're more comfortable with that space. You should ask hard questions. Have they been there? How do they know about this? And listen if they're bluffing you, right? Because you've asked me some tough questions here, right? How would you kind of things. I got to be honest. If I've not been somewhere, there's no use in me telling you I've been there and faking it, right? And then understand their motivations, right? So like, for me, my motivation in travel, while I need to make money, is not profit. My motivation is making sure you get what you want, making sure you have a dream and a memory to walk away with, right? And I'm not talking photos. I'm talking what you get up here, right? What do you walk away with? What do you go home with? Did you get everything you hoped for that way? And so I always tell my customers, I'm like, I'm going to sell you a dream. I'm going to show you your dream. And I want to know that you had it when you come home. And I want to know if I didn't make it happen, right? Because it's important to know whether you did or didn't.
Your podcast, Life in the Baggage Claim.
Yes.
Life in the Fast Lane. Yours is Life in the Baggage Claim. Did you have bad experiences with baggage?
I'll tell you what. So that name was a bit of a, let's just throw something and figure out what works. And I went through a lot of name hunting. And when that was something I could use, and I checked with my circle of sort of people I go to, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a great podcast name, right? And I was like, okay, we're going to go with this. My co-host and I had just come out of, or we had gone to travel classes together, and we sort of got to know each other. And I said, hey, I want to do a podcast. We got to look younger. We got to feel like we're part of this new crowd that's got this social presence. Let's do a podcast. He's like, oh my God, I want to do it real bad. I said, I'm going to call it Life in the Baggage Claim. He's like, okay, let's do it. So we got like 2 episodes in, and I turned AI on us, and I said, so from everything we had created, says, tell me what this podcast is about. Nothing to do with travel. It said, it was about 2 guys who knew each other having stories to tell and talking about life experiences. And I said to him, I said, so do you think that's what we're doing? And he goes, oh, I thought you wrote it that way. I said, that's what AI thinks of us. And so we sort of have been pivoting little by little through different things. Our goal is to have stories to share and things to talk about that are always told with the eyes of travel, whether it be life journey travel, whether it be personal travel, whether it be just experiential travel, right? It's not always about getting on a plane, a bus, or a cruise ship, right? It's sort of, what did you do to get from here to there? And that's led to some really interesting guests. It's led to some really interesting conversations. I always say this was our first year. We'll have ended with 26 episodes, which for us being nobodies and knowing nothing about what we were doing felt really accomplished. We had a mid-year, what we called brain meltdown, where we released a 4-part series called What the F is Going On Here? What do we think about it? And it was sort of a moment where Chuck and I sat down and said, so what about what's going on in the world? If we don't talk about it, who will, right? And I says, we're either going to polarize people or they're going to totally get it, right? They're going to walk away or they're going to join us. It has helped grow our numbers better than we thought. We got a lot of, it was our series that got people interested to start talking about stuff. And we just took a very matter-of-fact approach, right? We didn't really point any fingers. We didn't get into the Trump game. We didn't get into all the problems, right? We just said, like, what's going on? And we're both approaching our 60s, right? We're both like, what's going on in this world? What do we do? I says, it's like, here we are, like pivoting at this point in our lives. Why? What happened, right? What changed? And so we wanted to talk about that and sort of all the things going on in culture. We actually have very different backgrounds, both in our religious backgrounds and all, but we have very common beliefs and goals. So it's kind of been fun for Chuck and I. We've gotten to know each other. We spent literally 1 week together, and then that's all we've seen of each other. And then it's all been online. And we have such a great time doing this podcast. Our guests come on and always come off saying, I've never had so much fun recording a show. We keep it light, right? It's not meant to be serious. It's not meant to be, a death drive. It's meant to be fun. Talk about what happened. And so we've had some great guests who, I think on one hand, they're a little shell-shocked when they start because we're not going to like ride you hard in our episodes. Right? We're just going to kind of get going. And sometimes you can see they warm up through the process. That even if we pre-interview them, they start warming up, and then you see they really open up. So I want to hear like you're doing, right? Like what got you? What made you do this? Why'd you go this direction, right? Because I think people need to hear that. We're all yearning for a story that we can identify with. Yeah. Something where we sit there and we go, hey, I hear you and I understand that. I'm going through that myself, right? So now I know I can do it. I can get there. Versus, sometimes everything points in the negative direction, right? I shouldn't, by all accounts, be starting a travel business. I shouldn't have left corporate America. I shouldn't have left IT, right? I should have been looking at my retirement balances and saying I need money, but I wasn't ready to play that game. So...
You mentioned the homeless. You're at you spent time with the Homelessness Commission there in Dallas. What is that? How does that work? Why did you get involved there?
So, I lived in San Francisco for 25 plus years, and I used to walk over homeless people every day, and it just got to be a lot. It's a hard thing. I grew up in a family where you sort of we were told you leave the world a better place than you came into it, right? And homelessness is something where I think it's too easy for people to just avoid it and not talk about it when it's such a simple thing to have a conversation about and so easy to get engaged and help. I've always felt that you need to talk to homeless people. You need to get to know them. They're not all mentally deficient. They're not all drug users. Some of them are circumstantially thrust into homelessness, right? And I'm a Christian, so it's important to me to sort of use those values to reach out. Not the ones that people use and call themselves Christian, but the true Christian values. Getting out there and doing something for your fellow people.
Like Jesus.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean you have to be Christian to do it either. I sort of feel like it's the right thing to do is help others. And so I've been very blessed in my life. I've been very fortunate because I've been able to make the pivots and turns I've done. I want to give it back. And so when the opportunity came up here in Dallas to be on the commission, my counselor came to me and said, I want to appoint you to this. Do you want it? And I said, sure. And it's been an interesting ride because I have gone through a couple different chairs of the commission. Its purpose has shifted and changed, but I keep doing what I do, right? I keep delivering. I keep trying to make a difference. And, I'm very proud of what happened over the last couple of years with it. We really pushed for an end to veterans homelessness here in Dallas, which is sort of a nice accomplishment because I think that's one group that they should not be struggling. Like we should be owing them a debt of gratitude for everything they did for us as veterans. And then just getting a committee organized and sort of out of its rut. The group had been around for a while and there had been talks of disbanding it a few times and it just didn't make sense because it did have something to say. And we were sort of the guiding voice and sort of the hope for what could be done with the different forces in Dallas. So, you don't want those things run by an all religious or all government group. You need some kind of oversight that's a little mixed, right? That kind of understands the purpose. I believe, in a world where, 42 million people go hungry every day and we have people with so much money they don't know what to do with it, we should somehow be able to close that gap. We should somehow be able to address the homeless situation, especially for those who are circumstantially thrust into it. Mentally, well, we can blame our own government for letting that go on, right? We don't provide the services. And we should also look at the the source, the reason, the cause. And we don't, right? We're very much into put a pill in your mouth, put a Band-Aid over it, you'll be fine. And what we don't look at is what causes it, right? What stress has led to someone being there? What pushed them in that place? Hell, I don't know. I could be homeless in a year for all I know. It could happen, right? It's possible for anybody. Circumstances can drive you somewhere, and it's not always because you had drug addiction, because you were mentally just insufficient or something. Things just happen. Life happens. You if you have a sudden health emergency and you have no money, what are you doing, right? It's going to happen. You got to take care of yourself, and you might end up on a street. That person isn't a bad person. They tried, right? They're trying hard. And we put such a broad label across homelessness, it bothers me sometimes. It's just, I can't do it. And I very much, like if I see there's homeless people live here near me, when I see these folks, I always stop and I'm like, what do you need? What's the circumstances? What can I do for you? Because you never know when that's the person who needed it most, right? And I think there's people have come in my life and done things for me when they didn't know I needed it. And I sort of always say, like, you made a difference when you didn't know you made a difference, right? You didn't ask for bragging rights. You didn't ask for permission. You just stepped in and helped. So I think it's important. I think if all of us could put a little time into working with folks who need help, calling folks who need to be called, talking to our friends we haven't heard from. We've let these cell phones get in the way. A text message is okay. But you know what sounds better? A voice.
Really does. Jim, has there been anything in the last month or so that you changed your mind on?
Boy, I've vacillated on my travel a lot. Sometimes I say, like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Am I really doing the right thing? I question myself pretty regularly. But I'll tell you what, every time I get right to that point where I think, I throw the towel in and give up, something happens to keep me going.
Wow.
So I haven't really had to reswag it. I seriously do look at my bank accounts and wonder, how much longer will I get with this business? But stuff comes in and things get paid for, and I get another opportunity to go do more. So I don't have a lot of regrets. I watched my dad live with a lot of regrets, and he died this last summer, and I walked his last 6 weeks with him and watched how regret consumed him.
Wow.
And I was just like, I can't. I'm not going to do that. It's not worth it.
Is there
all over the place, Joe? You've asked some great questions.
Well, let me ask, is there a question that you wish people would ask you more?
You're asking them. You're asking the whys. I think people need to ask more why questions. Because we want quantitative, we want qualitative, but we never want to understand what did it, right? I think why questions are really important. And I think there's, I try hard not to use the but very much. I want to use the and, but it's hard. And that's another corporate thing, right? It's like you go out and they teach you, don't say but, say and there's a value to that, right? When you say something and something else versus but something, it's a tone change, right? Staying more positive. So I don't necessarily know if there's anything I want to change at this point, but I am always, sort of maneuvering, right? It's not a steady course forward. It's a little like, well, let's just turn it a few degrees to the right and back a few degrees to the left and see where we're going, right? And that's where I do sort of laugh at the whole North Star, because I do think I use a North Star for guidance. It doesn't mean I follow it directly.
We all need help there. So, Jim, I'm in the tech industry too, as you mentioned, back in the 90s, and was working way too hard, 14, 16-hour days.
Yeah.
You're no stranger to that. And I was much younger back then, and, putting exercise and my health in the back seat. And next thing you know, I'm in front of the doctor. She tells me I'm at 340 pounds. So I
was right there with you, brother.
You were that big? Yeah, it was terrible. I didn't realize. I knew I was getting big. I didn't realize I was 46-inch waist. I'm now at 32, by the way. So she says to me, if you don't lose this weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. So my daughter was just born, scared the life out of me. Spent the next 6-7 months, lost about 130, 140 pounds, kept it off. People always ask me, what's your secret, what you do? I say, there's no secret, Jim. I say discipline, willpower, routine, focus. How does discipline play a role in your life, Jim?
So it's funny because the story that attracted me to reach out to you was that story, because I faced the same thing. I was in the late 90s, I hit nearly 400 pounds. I had a 48-inch waist. I look at pictures of me now and I go, how did I ever do that? It's the early 90s, right? And then I decided to start taking care of it. It was when I went to a sleep study. They wanted to put a CPAP on me full time. And I said, oh, no, I'm not doing that, right? Because I have a little bit of a phobia of not being able to breathe and, drowning and things like that. So it's sort of, that was what it kicked in, right? Was this kind of flight. So I said, nope. And I started exercising. I started going to the gym. I changed my diet. I went to a lot of vegetables and less other things for a while. Learned that I liked vegetables. I'm not a vegetarian. I'm not a vegan. I just found that more vegetables was good for me. I got the first 100 pounds off, felt really great, and then rode it out for a while, and then kicked it into serious overdrive and started going to the gym 5 days a week, every morning. And before you knew it, I was down to like 192 pounds. I'm up 230 now, 240 maybe, kind of swings up and down. I've learned to keep a little extra size and smaller size in the closet just in case as things change. But I've come to this point where I feel good about myself. I still think I could lose more, but at least I feel like I gave myself a chance to go further and longer in life. So it was just making the chance. I went to the gym every day. And you know what broke my habit? The saddest part is I went to have surgery done, an abdominoplasty to remove all that excess skin you get, right? Because I was still young enough. I was going out dancing to the clubs. And so I wanted to make sure that if I took a shirt off, it wasn't like this, wob, wob, wob going back and forth, right? And so I took it all off. And that 6 weeks recovery from that surgery made it hard to get back to the gym. The only thing that was good is I have maintained sort of my eating habits. I know when to eat more and when to eat less.
Right. Yeah, that'll definitely do it. Yeah. Jim, what motivates you?
What motivates me? The opportunity to make a difference is really key to me. And it doesn't have to be for namesake. I don't have to be known for it. It's nice to be recognized for things. But I just want to make sure other people experience good stuff, experience a good life. Like I said, I feel very blessed, very fortunate. And I just want other folks to have that opportunity too. I want them to feel what it's like to live in a happy place, to be comfortable, and to go experience the world, to check things out, live a little bit on the edge, right? Don't be afraid.
So given that motivation, right, of kind of impact, given the opportunity to help, how do you measure success?
All I need is one person to say, you did something, you helped me, you made this opportunity, and it changed me. I was over with a kid here, high school kid. My neighbor's a high school substitute teacher, and she connected me up with this high school kid who was looking for some work. And I needed some stuff done around the house. I needed stuff with Christmas lights put up, things like that. I met him. He's super smart, young Latino kid. Like I think he was a junior in high school when I met him. He's graduated now. But he was so smart, and he had no father. His mom was estranged from her husband. So he didn't grow up with a father figure, and, sort of an opportunity to step in there and help him out. And so I gave him work. I taught him how to do certain things. I bought him tools because he said he wanted to go to the trades when he was done. And so just watching him grow and pick up other work as he was working with me sort of told me I was doing the right thing, and that was success, right? And his mom came to me at one point. She says, like, you've been a real big help for me because I didn't know how to do these things for him. And so I says, well, I'm happy to be there for him because he's a good kid, right? He's a smart kid. My biggest concern is I think he went into the Army, and I'm sort of worried about how he'll come back, But otherwise, those are the things that mean something to me, right? When I can see someone who found their way out of a situation because of something I helped them get through.
Yeah, it's wonderful to even be the smallest part of someone's success or someone's growth is so rewarding.
When people will say it's altruistic, it doesn't happen. I'm like, yeah, it does. What you have to realize is it's not on your timeline that it happens. It's going to happen when it happens. So I had two friends who got me at a point when I was working at Salesforce. And if they hear this, they'll laugh too. But I always say they were a fundamental driver in a point of pivoting in my life because I had become the angriest white man out there.
Really?
I was just a really angry guy. And I don't know why. I don't remember really the why of how it happened. I just remember it happening. And they pulled me aside one day after a meeting and said, why are you so damn angry?
Yeah.
You're a nice guy, but why are you so damn angry? And I remember that hit me so hard.
Hmm.
I went home that night and really thought about it. And within a couple of days, I started a gratitude practice. And every day I would write in my journal and post online something I was grateful for. It was easy for the first few times, right? And I went 365 days because that's what I committed to. Is I would do a full year posting every day of something I was thankful and grateful for. And as you get into that practice, already at the time, it was a big thing to do 7 days of gratitude, 10 days of gratitude. I was going to do 365, right? Because I'm an overachiever. Let's go all the way. After the first 7 to 10 days, it got harder and harder, right? Because you got to dig. But I'll tell you, in that time, that year, I pivoted my life. I became a happier person. I became more open to things. I found what mattered more. And it was a good thing. It really made a difference. And I told them they were the reason that happened. They were the reason. If somebody hadn't said that to me, I would have been in a car wreck for my career, right? I just would have destroyed things the way I was going. So I was very glad they said something. And it took a lot of guts on their part to say that, not knowing how I would react, right? But it changed my life. It really did. And nowadays I go back to that gratitude practice in my head and I go, remember, you did this and it changed you. So.
Want to show your love for discipline, inspiration, and the Joey Pinz podcast? Now's your chance. Introducing the brand new Joey Pinz merch store, where style meets discipline. Choose from premium apparel, cozy hoodies, stylish hats, durable bags, and your new favorite coffee mug, all featuring the iconic Joey Pinz logo. Perfect for podcast fans, discipline enthusiasts, or as unique gifts for friends and family. Every purchase supports the Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations podcast, helping us continue to inspire greatness and promote positive change. Visit joeypinz.com/store today and wear your discipline proudly. Joey Pinz merch. Wear it, share it, and live it. Wow, I love what you're doing, Jim. I thank you so much for your time today. Absolute delight. I know you're helping people out there. You're a very good person. It's wonderful to see and be a part of it. Anybody watching or listening wants to get in touch with you. How do they do it?
They can find me on social media. So I always say go through my travel. It's just the easiest thing. It's JPHauck Adventures on most social media. If my name, you can find me. I'm not going to be easy to find on Facebook. I intentionally do that. You have to know me. You can reach out through my website at JPHauck Adventures or Life in the Baggage Claim, both those sites. You can reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to folks. Again, it comes down to I've had great opportunities. I'm always willing to share what that meant and how I got there. So, and I appreciate this time with you. It's been really fun to be here and talk. You've asked a lot of things that I walk out of these interviews and I go like, hey, remember that. Because, you kind of bring things back to the front that you haven't thought about for a while. And this is good stuff. I wouldn't be where I am without someone saying the why and what happened.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Jim Hauck, H-A-U-K. We'll make sure to put all those.
H-A-U-C-K.
H-U-C-K. Oh, thank you.
H-A-U-C-K.
Thank you so much, Jim. You be well. Next time I'm in the DFW area, perhaps we'll get a cup of tea.
Absolutely. Would love it.
You be well.
All right. Thanks, Joey.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypinz.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.